All right, so let's talk about how we're building an interactive training system, which is more than the website. A lot of what you've seen so far with training has been guides, a lot of printed documents, which is where we want to do staging to get everything working initially before we turn it into something interactive. Our entire framework is built on something we call the 18 checklist architecture. And there is a path for specialists, which are students as well, and VAs, businesses, which are the people paying the money, and partners, which are aggregators of students and businesses. We know that there are 6 phases for each of them, and therefore there are 18. For businesses, we have the social amplification engine, which starts with plumbing, goals, content targeting, amplification, and optimization. We know for specialists that they have to operate the, what are we calling it now? The digital marketing training system, right? So that's modules 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, from the 9 triangles all the way to running events. Then we have the partner track, which is the engineering infrastructure track to be able to manage groups of businesses, manage groups of specialists. In the same way, if you were to manage a Fancy Hands or manage an Uber, there's things that are necessary to make that network work, and that's marketing operations, dashboards, ad operations, event management, these other components. What we want to have is on a website that is on a private URL, can still be publicly accessible on BlitzMetrics.com, maybe behind a password, but as a URL, we want to show these 18 modules. Each of these, to make it interactive, if someone clicks on it, let's say they click on this, that should expand out into all the different things that are part of module number 6 for optimization. And we know that everything that we sell as a course or as a package is actually based on the same thing, which is training. Because the training that someone buys as a course is also the package that someone buys as done for you. Do it yourself, done for you. Every one of these we can break into components. And let's just call those tasks. And we're numbering these tasks. So let's say this is task number, let's give it number 600. And that goes all the way through, well, 600, 601, 602. And let's say it goes to, 650. These are all different tasks. We should be able to click on the particular task and expand that task further into how you do that particular task. So let's say this is task number 650. And for any particular task, because we know that people learn different ways, some people like to learn by watching a video because they want to see someone do it. Other people, they like to read. And there's the guide-driven, step-by-step, screenshot by screenshot, written version. These are actually all the same thing. So we want people to still look at the task-driven 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 written version, but it's also nice to be able to see someone click on it, to be able to explain it as they're going, but they're still going to be following the same subcomponents necessary to execute a particular task. Now, all of these tasks, in total, we are calling the 1,000 task library. And this is something that we want to make sure we're maintaining internally. So there is a Google Sheet that has this task library. For every one of these tasks, we're tying that to particular videos that show that particular task number so we can keep everything in check. And we have different portions that are part of our master guide that has all the text that goes back to the task. So think of this library as holding all the training that anyone could ever learn. And anytime we learn how to create a chatbot, or we learn how to do anything like set up an Infusionsoft campaign, or how do you create a personal brand manager, how do we edit a 1-minute video, how do we do any of these particular items, these are all individual tasks and they all must tie back to this overall inventory. And then when we go to events, maybe we're going to an event that is for chiropractors. Then we'll take a skin version of the social amplification engine that has these same 6 phases for this particular kind of business, and then that will turn into a skinned guide or a presentation which is actually the same thing. So this is how we're going to update all of our content at the same time. The guide is the text-driven version if they want to read it themselves, and the presentation is the narrated version in the same way you're watching this video. It's still the same diagrams, but the presentation doesn't have lots of text because someone else is speaking it, like when you're watching a video or when you're going to a workshop. The guide version is text-heavy because someone can go through it by themselves without another person reading it or explaining or being there, sitting next to them, doing the side-by-side coaching, that kind of consulting, that kind of thing. So we can also take this when we train specialists. So imagine when there are college students that are coming through different colleges and they want to learn how to use the digital marketing training system. Well, then we have the same set of content that ties back to these same tasks, but we regenerate this and skin it for BYU. We skin it for the University of Louisville. We skin it for our VAs that are in the Philippines. Same thing, skinning it differently. Maybe there's slightly different combinations of things that we include or don't include, but it's reassembling from the base menu. Because you can take meat, beans, cheese, rice, and have a taco, an enchilada, a tostada. It's all the same thing, recombined combinations of these that then we output as different packages that are for different user groups. That way we don't have to have thousands of different kinds of guides. Because can you imagine if we made a change, for example here, to how we do plumbing, base plumbing for anyone that wants to get plumbing, their tracking, their custom audiences, their UTM parameters, their pixels, all this kind of stuff. Think about what that would impact. If we didn't have this thing modularized, anytime we changed something in plumbing, we'd have to update every single variation that came out of that. And maybe there are, for businesses, there's veterinarians, there's professional sports teams, there's retailers. We can't afford to have to update every single one of those every time. We'd have to hire 1,000 people to do that. It'd be ridiculous, right? The way Google works is you go in and you search something on Google. Is there someone having to update your search results manually every time you do a search? No, they have a database. So this entire thing is database driven. Now initially, just to get something out, we want to have this be a static framework with these 18 boxes. So imagine, you come to a web page, there's these 18 boxes. You click on any one of these boxes, it expands to the underlying tasks. From the tasks, you can click on that, and you can see the detail associated with that task. So if you've got everything in the 1,000 task library, so imagine you had a giant lookup table in the database that had 1,000 rows, or however many rows. You can dynamically change the numbers of these tasks. When you change one, it changes all the other stuff that's tied to it, right? Because you can just link these together, or these could be different dimension tables that are linked together, right? Primary key, foreign key. But imagine, right, we change how we do our plumbing. We change how we do any one of these items. Everything else here automatically regenerates. No one needs to touch anything, right? So when we want to generate the latest version of this particular guide, we can just select, I want to generate the social amplification engine for car dealerships, right? And we have all the content, all these other things that are tied, that are tagged with these options here, and then it generates these particular options. So think of this as this master learning library where everything we have in the master presentation we make interactive. So that current book right now that's maybe 270 pages, every single diagram we want to make interactive. If you think about all the stuff that we teach, for example, we know that Module 7 is the 9 triangles. So this is the 9 triangles. And there's training around that. So if someone clicks on this, then this expands the module on the 9 triangles without having to go into what all the 9 triangles are. Imagine they click on Specialist Business and Partner, which is this one. And then we have all the training associated with that, where here's a summary of what that particular triangle is, Specialist Business Partner. And just like over here, there's a series of articles that explain how that works, and then there's a series of videos. For each of these particular items, these all tie back to our content library, which is just nothing more than a list of all the different content that we have that is tagged appropriately inside a Google Doc, eventually a database. Google Doc is just a weak database that has columns for all the different attributes that we need to determine where something sits. So let's say that someone clicks on this one and they want to learn about optimization, which is MAA, right? So here it is, MAA. And here's examples of how we do MAA, and here's videos of how we do MAA. These are concepts. These concepts are going to tie back here to how you do a task. Because let's say this is the optimization task, and there's a particular, let's say the task is a weekly optimization of a particular client account. Maybe that's worth $20, right? Takes you an hour, so it's worth about $20 an hour. Well, in that case, these videos are showing you how to do something. Click here, here's the format on how you do it, but as you're going through the task, you might not understand some of the concepts behind optimization. So this particular task would then link to related articles and videos on how to do it, which would then tie back to here. So all of these things can tie back to other content that is not directly related to a particular task. Another way to look at this is what we call strategy, concept, and tactics. And this is part of what we call the course builder guide. So strategy, which is goals, content, and targeting, these are the big picture things to understand why people do what they do, how businesses operate. There's a lot of general knowledge that you need to be able to operate in business. Concepts are things like marketing automation and email and what is personal branding and how do you negotiate a deal. Like there's areas of knowledge that you have to understand the concepts around. And the tactics are the individual tasks, like very specific. How do you set up Google Tag Manager by clicking through different items? How do you send out a success tracker on particular items? So maybe you're going through the tactics necessary to deliver against task number 650. But as part of this, let's say that you're optimizing their Infusionsoft, right? But you don't understand the concept of marketing automation. And that concept of marketing automation ties back to the strategy of list building and word of mouth and larger things that you just kind of need to understand. What we don't want to do is when we're trying to teach a particular task on how to do a particular item, to force whoever's making this task having to go back and teach the concept. So any of these particular tasks will have an associated list of pieces of content that are kind of prerequisites that you need to know. So if you understand the concept of optimization, if you understand the concept of how specialists, businesses, and partners work together, right, then it's going to make sense when you're here creating content maybe, or setting up different targets, right? If we're setting up different targets here with custom audiences and lookalikes and saved audiences and different kinds of ways to do targeting, but we don't understand the general concept of targeting, the general concept of custom audiences, you're going to get into trouble, right? Every piece of content in the content library, every task in this task library must have the particular attributes so everything can link together. Can you imagine that if someone is going through the, let's say a VA is going through the influence generator, number 9, and the influence generator is going out and collecting all the positive things that someone has said about that particular person or that particular business, but you don't understand the power of saying thank you, right? The concept of saying thank you, the concept of the thank you machine, right? As part of the overall strategy of how do we amplify what's working, you're not going to understand. Think about any of these tasks, all the different ways someone's going to need to be successful, all the things they need to know. We want to associate that back with it could be one or more concepts, it could be one or more strategy components, and there's also related tactics. So when we have these sheets, the overall content library, and we can have a content library for each client, we have a content library for Blitz, we have a content library for each of these clients. There are these different tasks, and then they've got, imagine, right, for each one there's a big spreadsheet, lots of rows, and then lots of columns. And the columns are going to say, for a particular task, what's the minimum level that that task sits in, right? You've got to be at least a level 3 to work on this kind of task. What are the related concepts? And that could be 3, 4, 5 things inside this field. What's the task number? What's a description of the task? What is the predecessor of that task? So before we can do task 650, maybe you have to complete task 49. And then what's after that, right? If you complete task 650 successfully, then you're going to do task 651. And it might not be sequential, because we may decide that at some point there are actually tasks that sit between 600 and 601, because as we get more complex, maybe this 1,000 item task library becomes a 10,000 item library, right? We have to have a database that allows us to expand things to include more. And as we start to have more verticals, so let's say we have sports teams and we have retail, like big chains, furniture, whatever people buy inside stores, shoes, right? Maybe then we have different variants of these, fast food, right? We can also tag that here. What vertical is it? Fast food. So imagine in the ultimate situation, you wanted to implement a package for somebody, or you wanted to teach at a particular conference. Then you could come here and you could say, maybe I just want how to do ads. Or maybe I want the entire social amplification engine. You select that, you select the vertical, you select who the figurehead is, and then we generate these documents. So we never need to go to the design VAs every single time and redo a deck every single time. So think about this website as interactive training and generating it to be specific to any particular audience that we want. Anytime we go to a school, imagine we come here, click, okay, I want to do this whole thing, or I just want to teach students how do you become a project manager, or teach students how do you behave at an event, like at a conference. We can just take something that's already there, upload the logo, give it a date and title, because the system's not going to know. So there's certain things you have to tell the system, and then it generates this item. This is the same thing that we're working on with generating images. For example, we have a form now, it works right now in Infusionsoft, and you come in and you select each of your 6 topics, or not select, actually you name each of your 6 topics, and then you list 3 things that are part of your topic. And then this generates, visually, a topic wheel. Same thing where if someone comes in and we ask them, because we want to collect their goals, and they say, here are my 3 personal goals, short, medium, long. Here are my 3 professional goals, short, medium, long, and 3 physical goals, short, medium, long. Then this generates a little image generator, a 3x3 goals sheet, because we have short, medium, long term, and personal, physical, and professional. So it's a graphics generator. All you do is you fill out the form, and then it generates a diagram. Same thing here. You select the things that you want, add in a few attributes that are necessary for the system to generate what it wants, and then it generates one of these things. So think about how nice that'll be, because when we have these particular diagrams that are already stored, and every one of these pages, if you will, inside this PDF or PowerPoint has variables that we can dynamically inject. Look, every one of these workbooks is exactly the same. All we're doing is we're skinning it with a different date, maybe a different logo or different color and the border, right? But it's still the same thing. What I'd love to see is have this whole thing just be a website. And our website will be like this, where, now this is where the real power starts to happen. So right now, we're talking about document generation. Taking all the things that we know, everything in my head, the last 20-something years, and putting it into this kind of system where all these concepts are linked together, kind of like neurons that fire, right? And the brain is nothing more than a collection of neurons that fire based on relationships, and that's really what this is if you think about that. But imagine that when someone comes in, like a new partner comes in, and they want to qualify. Because I want to be a partner. I want to be able to white label BlitzMetrics because I'm an agency and it's me, and I want to do the relationships, and I want to have other people, I want to white label and have them do the execution. Or I'm a specialist and I'm graduating and I want to learn how to be a digital marketing pro and I want to go through qualification. Or I'm a business and I want to see, I'm doing e-commerce and I just started my Shopify store and I want to be able to go through this process. If you opened up everything to these people that are coming through, then it would be overwhelming. It would be so much. Because when a business comes in and they come here to plumbing, they're going to barf within the first 5 minutes because they'll say, oh my goodness, Google Tag Manager and the pixels and UTM parameter and Google AMP and Facebook custom audiences and all these different things. They're not even going to get to over here. So the idea of a video game is that you have unlocking because certain things aren't available till certain levels. You have the fog of war. You have things that as you level up, it allows you to do other things. So imagine if someone comes in initially as a specialist and they can only see a couple things that they need to learn how to make a 1-minute video. And here's some examples on how to do that from the content library. They come in as a business and we collect some very basic goals, content, and targeting. And then as they tell us more about their goal, as we start to get more data, because they go through the access checklist, and we see they're actually pretty sophisticated and they're driving revenue, then we can make recommendations that are based on where they are. If they're already spending $10,000 a day in Facebook ads, then we already know something about their goals, content, and targeting. We know something about how we might optimize and how they could probably buy a particular task they have done, either piecemeal or on the menu. By the way, all this kind of stuff, I'll show you a different color. Every one of these guides is, or the training, every one of these 18 training modules is a course and a package at the same time, right? A course, you can go through the tasks yourself. A package is, I'm just going to pay someone and then they're going to go through the same tasks. So the training's still the same. Now imagine they come through here and they realize there's some of the stuff they can't do. And that is tasks, we'll just say for fun, this is task number 650, or 600 to 650. There's 50 tasks in here. Because we have specialists that are trained and have earned the badge, by the way, yeah, so when specialists go through here, they have to earn the badge to be qualified to do that task. They can't imagine there's a menu of these tasks here. Let's say I'm a new specialist and I've earned the badge to do this and this, but I have not earned the badge to do this. Then I'm not allowed, this is grayed out, I'm not allowed to do that, right? The idea of gamification and unlocking certain things, like until you're level 5 in Pokemon, you can't go to a gym, or things like this, right? So when there are specialists that have come through, or VAs that have qualified, gone through the training, earned the badge. Anytime you go through training, you have to take a quiz, you have to demonstrate that you've done it, get it approved, then you're qualified to do something, right? Just like in school, just like if you want to be a doctor or an attorney, you have to pass these certain exams. You have to, operate on a cadaver. We want to do the same thing, micro tasks. Then that business can come through and say, okay, I want to buy these particular items, and there's a price tag associated with this. So maybe this one's $10, and this one's $30, and this one's $5, right? Now all of a sudden, we have a two-sided marketplace, and it's like Uber. So you have businesses that are the riders, and you have specialists and VAs that are the drivers. So every one of these particular tasks, should also have a price tag, of course, right? Because we have to know what it's worth. The price tag is what we sell it for, and then there's the bounty, which is what we pay the specialist for, which should be about 1/3. So if If the business is paying $30 for that particular task, then the specialist should get about 10. So that's about fair. That's the typical agency dynamic, right? And then that leaves room for training, leaves room for marketing, for us building systems, making some profit. Nothing wrong with making a profit, right? So this entire system is not only driving training, but it's kind of a secret way, a smart way to drive people into the particular tasks that they need to have done. So these businesses understand through metrics, analysis, action. The action is, here's this kind of stuff. The metrics is going to be the dashboard. They're going to come in through our dashboard, get their free metrics, get everything scored, kind of like an X-ray, then have recommendations based on this. Because if you go through the dashboard, it's an X-ray, and it finds that certain things are wrong, and then we have recommendations based on this, right? Metrics, analysis, action, therefore here's a list of tasks specific to what we've determined about you. Then we can run that through our marketplace and have it serviced by this layer. So the real power is we have businesses that are coming in and getting scored for free. The system outputs things that are wrong based on some basic thresholds. And then specialists, the VAs, and the young adults, and the house moms are servicing that demand. The system side, the partner side, is how we regulate this marketplace. All the systems that are necessary to train people, to create reports, to set up the content and marketing automation associated with that, to be able to automate the ads, to be able to take automated actions, all the things necessary to build this entire system on the engineering side, right? Engineering is really network management, so that it's like putting stoplights and traffic signals all over the place so you don't have people that are just crashing into one another. If you have millions of cars and you don't have lanes and yield signs and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have a disaster. So imagine that we take all the training that we have, just start from this, the 18 modules here. Break them down into each module. Each module has a particular set of tasks. Each of these tasks is associated with training, is associated with a particular level, maybe is tied to a particular vertical or it's not. Any one of these items can have one or many attributes associated with it. So let's say that there's a task on sending the client a report, like making a 3-minute video saying, hey, this is Ben, and I just wanted to tell you what's going on last week. According to your goals, content, and targeting, you want to drive more leads at less than a $20 cost per lead, and here's how we're doing, and we spent this, and we did that, and we say that's worth $10, right? Because it takes you 10 minutes, $10, why not, right? That, you could say, is tied to optimization, but you could, which is tied to what the specialist or VA does in generating a report, but it's also tied to understanding what the goal is. And it's also tied to the plumbing, because if we don't have the plumbing, we're not able to track the fact that we're collecting against this particular goal. So any one of these tasks, any one of these pieces of content can have one or many attributes associated with it. Let's say that there's a basic task on how do you set up the pixel. Well, that will work for pretty much any vertical. So it's not just plumbers and professional sports teams and retail stores. It could be any of them. So any one of these, the content library ties with particular tasks, the attributes associated with the task, and the attributes associated with our content library, you can have one or many. And any particular piece of content may tie to one or many of these particular tasks. Let's say that there's a concept called personal branding. And it's not a task, because you don't do personal branding as a single task. Personal branding is a package, and the package we can break down into a series of tasks. But if someone is for some reason out of order, or a client is coming through and then they realize, you know what, to really reflect my goals, I need to do personal branding to be able to start my why. But they don't understand that. They just want to get this particular task done, or the VA or specialist needs to get this task done. They need to go back and understand that concept. And the concept of personal branding in our content library, that particular piece of training, which can be video or text, can be tied to one or many of these tasks. So all this content, all these diagrams, some of them are more important than others. You already know what they are based on how often they're being used, can be linked together in an interactive HTML website. So if you think about HTML, it's nothing more than a series of documents, and if I click on one thing, then it opens up to this other thing. And I click on this, I can go even deeper. Or I can go from here and I can click back, right? If you think about a website and you're navigating and you're going between different components, that's what this is. It's a website, but the linkages, the links between these different items is actually where the logic is. The power of our system in BlitzMetrics is not that we have good training on personal branding. It's not that we have a particular task on how do you collect thank you from other people. It's not that we're better at video editing. What's powerful is the logic that governs what happens next. It's the bundling, the business logic of how we bundle these different tasks into packages. It's the fact that we have the authority from these different businesses that we can reskin instantly and reskin these for all these different schools instantly and have the automation against it. That's the real power of what makes this unique. Therefore, it's something that we have to build internally. We can't use Process Street or Infusionsoft or these other guys to govern this business logic. This business logic is something that has to be built as internal, I don't want to say software it is, but it's really just a series of these different sheets that are linked together that we can then use VAs to update. As long as we have strong VAs to update any one of these things that changes, let's say we change the price of this item to $10, and then this particular task is part of 15 different possible packages, because we can take combinations of these things and create different guides. For example, this is a package, and let's say it's video editing, and it's for dentists, and it's got, we'll edit 5 one-minute videos. So 5 one-minute videos times $10 each, $50, and then this one for marketing agencies, we're going to say instead of 5 videos that we edit, instead of a quantity of 5 for that task, we'll say it's a quantity of 30. So now this is going to be 30 of this particular $10 task, right? You have different combinations of these tasks, 5 of this and 3 of that, but then this package for this partner, right? These partners will be able to assemble different packages, but these packages are really just different combinations of the same tasks. They're not different tasks, right? If we change the price of this one item, number 600, from $10 to $20, then the price of all packages should adjust automatically. Because anytime you do a sum of this, you'll be like, okay, 5 times 10, but now it's 5 times 20. Now instead of 30 times 10, it's 30 times 20. So as long as we maintain these tasks here, and this is the main lookup, this is the source of truth or the canonical, and we set for every one of these tasks, here's the price, and here's, it's got to be level 3 and whatever it is, then everything else will automatically adjust. All the landing pages where people can come in and buy this particular item will adjust automatically, right? Including, let's say, the payout, because let's say that the payout is half that, or sorry, a third of that. In this $30 payout, well, let's say we double the price from 30 to 60, so then the specialist payout or VA payout goes from 10 to 20, right? So think about this whole system as a way of anytime we make an adjustment anywhere, the entire system adjusts, and it doesn't become this broken thing where someone updates a PowerPoint slide over here, and then they forget to update the 23 other things that it touches, which is the whole point of why you build systems and websites and lookup tables, or why you have databases. So it does require some basic understanding of databases to be able to build this, because you have to understand that these entities are linked together. So it's less of a programming challenge, and it's more of a logical challenge where you understand that when you teach something, it can be in video format or guide format. That everything that is training can be available as do-it-yourself as a course, or done for you where you buy the package. Where you understand that there's supply and demand, the supply of students and VAs, a demand of these different businesses. So it's not just, I'm good at PHP or LAMP, or I can write crazy Python scripts to pull data from these different places. That's great, but it's the business logic behind it. You've got to be technical enough to understand these different things and make the data work, but you have to understand the business side. And the combination of that is what we want to put on the BlitzMetrics website, but behind a password. And then this is going to drive our dashboard. This is going to drive everything that we're selling. This is going to drive basically Uber for marketing, except these specialists are going to be able to level up. They've got coaching. They don't do that in Uber. This is where businesses can progress, right? Instead of, like, if you think about businesses and specialists in the Uber model, you have drivers and you have riders. There's no improvement. There's no learning. There's no coaching. There's no relationship along the way, but they still have, like a Fancy Hands, they still have this kind of system. We want to take advantage of that system, but also add in the things that are, take the good things out of that system and then add in other things that they don't have, like the mentorship and the leveling and the fact, like if you drive Uber for 3 years, you're making the same amount pretty much as you did when you first started, right? Here, you can make more because you're unlocking more tasks. So imagine, as people are coming through, as specialists is coming through, they can't see everything because we've graded every one of these pieces by what level of access is necessary. It's like the US government. Certain things are top secret and like super, super secret, or whatever the different levels of secret are, right? We want to do that with these things. Not because we're trying to keep these crazy secrets, but because we don't want to confuse people. We want to bring them through the right set of recommendations. So this is a system we want to build. This will take quite some time. The point of iteration, communicate, iterate, delegate, and MAA is we want to put it out there. And then as you build these different components, let's test it. Let's have the specialists and the businesses go through. Let's see how it works. Let's see as they come through these particular tasks. We have a thing in Infusionsoft that I think we want to replace, but it's a little feedback loop. And anytime a task is done or a project is done, we ask that business to rate us 1 to 5 stars. Think about eBay, think about Airbnb, think about Uber. When someone does something for you, you rate them. Yelp, you rate them 1 to 5 stars. So we want these tasks to be rated 1 to 5 stars, and then as specialists are doing things, we want them to be rated 1 to 5 stars. So as this thing builds out, think about how this has to integrate with the rest of our systems. Initially, it's just going to be this interactive content, drill down, click around kind of thing, but think about what happens as we start to tie to the dashboard, as we start to tie to people getting paid, we start to tie to reviews, we start to make this thing truly what will be the world's largest video game. I really believe this is going to be bigger than World of Warcraft, Pokemon Go, any of these things, because people will be, Farmville. This will be bigger than any of those because it will be real learning instead of all the minutiae that people learn in some other games. Think about the kinds of things they memorize. There's all kinds of stuff. But they're going to be learning things that are worthwhile. They're going to be paid with real currency instead of virtual currency. And when you see that that's the case, you see why this is a challenge that is both interesting and it's worthwhile at the same time.